So welcome, comrades, of course, sisters and brothers across the continent. I hope you can hear me, and those will be watching this recording later. My name is Fijilo Dimwengu. Of course, I come from a colonial territory called Kenya, and we are Conscious in Study class. We are working on raising the consciousness of Africans as per the guidance of our saga for Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. And our key intention is actually to study how we can decolonize Africa. And that decolonization process, as per Kwame Nkrumah, involved 3 stages. It involved the liberation of Africa. It involved the unification of Africa and the development of Africa. So consciousness class is purely meant for actually to produce consciousness among Africans, to make Africans be more conscious and more proactive and progressive in demanding for the total liberation of Africa, total unification of Africa into one continental government, and total development of Africa. And that's why we meet every Thursday to read the philosophy. This reading is a reading of a philosophy, not reading of a storybook. And therefore, we spend much time to actually share our thinking. I know many might be saying, I've read Consciousism. Yes, I've read that book. Consciousism is not like any other storybook because it's very hard to understand it unless you read it and analyze it. So this is the second part we're doing our reading. And we started our reading at around May or June, and we're progressing. So we're in chapter 1 of Philosophy in Retrospect, where Nkrumah takes us starting from, let's look back to the philosophy. And let's start from the origin of the universe. Before we know our history, let's start by the history of the universe. Where is the universe, or how did the universe come to be, or what there is? What is the material concept or the material cosmic raw material of the universe? And how did that cosmic raw material of the universe come to be? That's why Nkrumah takes us first, so that if you can be able to understand the universe, then you want to go to philosophy and society, so that you can also understand our society before we move forward to us understanding our liberation, our unification, and our development. And I think this is very important because they say, if you don't know your roots in Kiswahili, they say, mwacha mila ni mtumwa. If you don't know your cultures and your tradition, you are a slave. And therefore, it's very important to do here. So this is what we've been doing. And we've been studying, of course, 2 positions from the origin of the universe, the idealist position and the materialist position. Materialist, not material being or the material accumulation, the idealist and the materialist position. And this class today, we might be coming towards understanding the end of idealism or idealist position, as Nkrumah has been exposing this clearly to us. As we know, idealists, of course, base their understanding and their thinking on spirits and ideas. And then we can be able now to actually move further to expound on materialism. So thank you very much. And I'd like to actually give Brother Kwame opportunity to welcome other members before we go to our reading straight. Thank you. Welcome, Brother Kwame.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. I just want to join you in welcoming everyone. We may not realize it, but we are actually lighting a fire. We are the match that is lighting the fire. And everything you have said is in order. This is not a storybook. It's the philosophy and the ideology of conscientism, in effect of Pan-Africanism. Not the liberal kind, not the conservative kind, the radical kind. So thank you for welcoming us. What we'll do is we normally will read a section of the book, and then we will then share our thinking. We don't share our viewpoint. We don't share our opinion. What we do is we share our thinking, meaning that you share with us the thoughts that are going through your head as you are reading it, as you are listening. And if you're not ready to share immediately, come back to you later on. But we prefer to hear from everyone because everyone is important. Everyone's thinking is important. Freedom of thought is crucial to the transformation of Africa. So So we listen to everyone. No thinking is less is inferior to any other thinking. Everyone's thinking is important. It doesn't always mean that everyone's thinking is correct. The difference between thinking and thinking correctly. Thinking is a right of everyone. Everyone has a right to think. And that's all of us have a right to think and to share our thinking. But as I said, there's a difference between the right to think and the possibility of thinking wrongly. So, for example, you might think that 1 + 1 is 5, but actually, although you have a right to think that, it doesn't mean that 1 + 1 is 5. 1 + 1 is actually 2. So, so the sharing of thinking is very important. And because our thinking are not always correct, we share the thinking so that we can also learn from one another and hear one another. That's why we are patient with one another. It is part of reparations. It's part of the repair that we need as Africans to repair ourselves, and and in repairing ourselves, we have to repair others. And repairing something sometimes, especially when it comes to a complex entity like the human being, requires a lot of patience. And that's why we are patient with one another, love one another professionally, of course, and we want us all to progress. So, so thank you very much. Usually we take the reading in turns. And so we read, we don't read a lot, we just read a section and then we discuss our thinking. So yes, so Brother Pigeon, that is it. Let's proceed. Thank you. So
Thank you
where
very
are
much.
we? Which page is that?
In
Is that
the in
page?
the what
Um,
in the
mm,
page 22. In the one page book is page 22.
okay, thank you.
For
Those of
Sister
us who don't
Marley,
have the book, yeah, go on.
for Sister Marley, you can maybe guide her. I think she know the last page she was in page 18, so it's close to that page 18. Yeah, to those who don't have the book, as Brother Kwame said, we can
Yeah.
share with you soft copy. We have also audio version that was done with one of our brother Michael, so you can also have an audio version of this book. So
Yeah, that's
as
correct. Yeah.
we are in page 22, we are reading the first paragraph of page 22. As in our usual traditions, we ask one member to read for us one paragraph, we discuss, and then we go to the next paragraph after we actually share our thinking. So for this case, Sister Sherin, are you able to read for us the screen? What is in the screen?
Yeah, sure. Give me 1 moment. How far do you want me to read to you?
Okay.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hold on. How much do you want me to read?
Only a paragraph from the 18th century before, only that paragraph of 18th century.
Okay. All right.
Sorry,
So
what page are we on?
Yeah,
That's
Marlin,
right.
we are on page 18 and 19 of the book you have.
Oh, page
Look-
18 and
Yeah,
19.
look
Okay.
towards the end of page 18, the last paragraph. That's where you should find.
Okay. All right.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Okay. So the 18th century African philosopher from Ghana, Anthony William Amo, who taught in the German universities of, I think is it Haley or Hale?
You can say
Jenna.
Hale, yeah, Hale or Haley, yeah.
Okay. Hale, Jenner, and Wittenberg pointed out in his De Humanae Mentis Apatheia that idealism was enmeshed in contradictions. The mind, he said, was conceived by idealism as a pure, active, unextended substance. Ideas, the alleged constituents of physical objects, were held to be only in the mind and to be incapable of existence outside it. Amo's question here was how the ideas, largely those of physical objects, mainly of which were ideas of extension, could subsist in the mind, since physical objects were actually extended. If they were really ideas, some ideas must be actually extended. And if all ideas must be in the mind, it became hard to resist the conclusion that the mind itself was extended in order to be a spatial receptacle for its extended ideas. The contradiction is in the denial of the spatial nature of mind and the compulsion to harbor spatial objects in it. For in idealism, it is not only our bodies which are in our minds, instead of our minds being in our bodies, the whole universe, to the extent that we perceive or be aware of it, is neatly tucked away in our minds.
Thank you for that reading. This is an extension of our discussion we've been having now for almost 4 to 5 classes on idealism. And now we are getting towards this. So as we've been said, we ask members to share their thinking in regards to what do you pick from that reading? What do you think is communicated here? Or how do you understand that reading? So that's what we ask you to share your thinking in regards. So I'll start by, let me check in my, we have Sister Haida, nice to see you. I know you are having some issues, hope you've recovered. We are fighting with the common cold all over, even in Africa here, it's on and off. So nice to see you, Sister Haida. Sister Mayra, can you able to share your thinking?
I thought Sister Mara just read it.
No, it was Sister Shireen who read it.
How was it?
Sister in the room. Sister Mayra?
Yes, I'm back. I was having trouble with my Zoom, so I had to change devices.
Sorry for that. Are you able to share your thinking now?
Yeah, it seems like Anthony William is questioning. I think he's saying, so if everything, including physical objects, exists in the mind as an idea, then but then if I think he's trying to say, but isn't the mind itself an object? So where do the idealists put it? It's like if the idealists think that everything is in the mind, including this computer, my phone, okay, that's fine. But then what thinks up the mind? Because the mind has to hold all those things somehow. So I think he's questioning, so where do those things exist if they have to then create objects? So I think he's just trying to point out, like Kruma did, the contradiction and the fallacy that something has to exist, but then if you say everything is just an idea that exists on its own, but then the mind, where do you put it? So yeah, he was trying to point out to them how confusing their philosophy was and how it did not make sense, that nothing comes from, that things come from nothing. I think that's what I'm getting.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I know we've also been having members who have not been either consistent enough to follow up our readings, but at least you'll be able to understand this. Let me give my thinking a bit before I pass it over also to the next person, in a process of also trying to build up the conversation. To my thinking, I'm also saying that William is trying to question one thing. If you tend to think that, as idealists think that everything is ideas and those ideas are all in mind, then until an extent you can think that thinking of somebody having a whole body is just something in the mind, it's not a reality. Like a leg, eye, everything else to you is less like a component of a thinking. It's like meditation. You're only meditating that somebody is having a body. And that's why sometimes it was asked that idealists can say they can think of even a cow without a tail. So to idealists is that there's nothing outside the mind, and everything that we have is just either perceptions. So they don't believe that there are things that exist beyond the mind, like the body, problems or suffering you're going through, and they tend to take them just those are ideas in somebody's mind. It's like you're dreaming that that you have a body. So to them, they find it that ideas or actual material being of a body or of the universe are just perceptions. So that's what I'm trying to read from this, and that's what is my thinking, and that's why they ask. So even the body become an element of mind, and not mind being part of the body. And actually, that's so it's pointing some weakness to idealism and their stand in terms of their philosophical or ideological thinking. But let me also hear what Sister Ida. Are you able to speak, Sister Ida?
I'm not sure if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Not that well. Are you
Okay, then
struggling?
I think I can't speak. Yeah, I am struggling. Sorry, so that I won't be speaking. Sorry. I've lost my voice, so it's no use me trying. If you can't hear me, sorry.
No, we can hear you. It's just that we don't want to strain you. If you're comfortable trying to share at that tone, it's okay because we can hear you.
Okay. I think that it sounds like it says the contradiction is in the dual denial of the spatial nature of the mind. And I think it's saying that you can't put everything in but because the body then becomes part of the mind, you really can't. I don't think that the spatial nature really exists within the mind because it's too big. At least I half feel that's what is being implied. So
thank you for that.
Yeah.
Continue,
No,
please.
no. I think because I don't think it's easy for the mind to grasp spatial nature if you're putting everything into it. Or I think that's where he says the contradiction lies. But sorry, I think that's what I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. From your reading, of course, you're trying to say that the mind cannot be big enough to accommodate the body. In reverse, you think that the body is what is fit to accommodate the mind. Thank you for that. Sister Sister Marlin, you're here? Greetings. Have you got the page?
Greetings. Oh dear, I think it's quite complicated from what I can make out. It's not a simple thing to work it all out. And the mind and the body, right? It's saying the mind and the body is fighting to deal with what is going on in society. And it also can contradict certain things about life. I think that's what I have to say, but it's not an easy thing to explain.
Thank you for that. I remember it's going to be like a story of a chick and the hen, or the chicken and the hen. That the hen is only a perception is in his or her mind as a chicken. Well, in the other side, the thinking is that the chicken must be existing in a hen because the hen will be producing the chicken. But this is another reverse that the chicken, the existence of a hen in the mind of a chicken is just a perception. And the chicken thinks that the hen should come from the chicken anyway. But that's sorry for confusing you further. Let me hear from Sister Shereen.
I'm gonna say that. Okay, well, so we have an African brother. I'm on the phone. We have an. I'm sorry, just wait a minute. So we've got an African brother who's philosophical ideas, or his teachings were done at the German university. So he's obviously he obviously knows how to speak German, and his book, I think that is Latin, isn't it? Humano Mentis Apatheia. Is that Latin?
Brother Kwame can answer that.
For Kwame? Is it Latin?
What's the question?
Is the title Latin?
Yeah, it's Latin.
Okay. No.
Latin. Remember that the educated, if you are very educated at the time, when you write, you write in Latin. Yeah, Latin was
even
like
now,
the educated, the language of the educated. Non-educated, well, they couldn't write anyway, let alone write in Latin. So they spoke what we call vernacular. So yeah, so it is in Latin, yeah.
Okay. So he's saying that idealism was enmeshed in contradictions. So he's stating here that there is no one, although some say idealism is one is a certain way of thinking. There are pros and cons to it in his understanding. The mind is sort of perceived by idealism as a pure act of unextended substance. So it's this he's referring to it as a kind of idealism being a daydream that cannot become reality. Brother Kwame, you might want to correct me on this. And he's basically saying that thoughts are just pictures in the mind by what I read here. And it was ideas the alleged constituents of physical objects were held to be only in the mind, just being capable of existence out of it. There's as if the mind just has pictures within it that are you're not able to build your reality out of the mind. I'm especially here with how the ideas largely those of physical objects, many of which were ideas of extension, could exist in the mind. Since physical objects are actually extended, if they were really ideas, some ideas must be actually extended. So it's like where you birth an idea in your mind, and I believe that if you have an idea in your mind, you are able to create it. That's what I believe. But in this instance, he goes way deeper. So in terms of his contradiction, it's a denial of the spatial nature of the mind and the compulsion to harbour spatial objects in it. So if one is familiar with meditation, for example, one is able to go deep within the confines of the mind, and in the meditative state, if you are conscious within your meditative state, it may take you to heights that you may not have experienced in a physical human nature. For example, so in terms of the mind is in a state, space is infinite, but in reality, space has limitations in reality. And where you said for an idealism, it's not only our bodies which are in our minds instead of our minds being in our bodies. The whole universe, to the extent that we can perceive or be aware of it, is neatly tucked away in our minds. And this is where I'm talking about, say, for example, meditation or imagination. You can think way bigger than the reality of where we are at might be able to take us. For example, I might believe in my mind that I can fly. I might believe in my mind that I can build an aeroplane or whatever. But in reality, it would take a lot of skill and a lot of determination for me to actually bring that to reality. I'm not saying it isn't possible, but it is extremely difficult to bring to reality what's in our minds. Brother Kwame.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll go to Brother Kwame as he'll share his opinion also, and his thinking, not opinion, thinking. So you've brought some serious thing that if you believe in, if you think in your mind you can fly, now will be flying remain a mental thinking. Like, do you be if you told today that somebody flied, will you say that there's a perception, or will you really believe that it's actually that somebody can fly? So to the idealist, that anything like somebody's flying or somebody did this is like a perception. It's not a reality. It's just a perception to them. Anyway, I'll come back to you as maybe you'll share more as we continue. I've seen somebody else join us in the name of Bokang. You need actually maybe to introduce yourself, and because it might be your first time and you're taking note of our membership. Bokang, allow me know who you are before I move to Brother Mauli to actually share his thinking. Bokang?
Yes. Thank you very much, comrades. My name is Bokam from Lesotho. Yes, it is my first time to be in this class. So I'm sorry that I'm late. I didn't see the message. I've just seen the notice now, but I'm happy I'm here now. So
thank you very much.
That's me.
You're from Farmers of Thought or the new Pan-African Agenda?
Pan-African Agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. I see also Sister Ifsi Moth from Farmers of Thought. Can you introduce yourself? I think it's also your first time joining us. Ifsi from South Africa, is that right? Or she has gone?
She's gone.
Okay,
yeah.
I think she'll be joining us. So, welcome, brother.
She's back.
Oh, she's back. Sister Ifsi, I think.
My understanding, brother Pigeon, I
Yes.
think Ipsy is a chief. If I'm right, I think she's a chief, and then she can introduce herself.
No, Sister Ifsi, welcome to our class. I think it's your first time joining us. Can you introduce yourself and let us know who you are and maybe where you're coming from, sister?
Where I am,
You're not that audible, sister. Yeah, no, you're not audible enough, Sister Ifsi. Now you're better off.
Oh, okay. Am I better now? I'm humbled. Shalom, everyone, and much appreciation for this opportunity granted me. My name is Tihalilia Ipileng. I'm from this colonial borders of what we call South Africa. My network is very bad. Where I am, I can hardly hear you, so I might lose you now and then. But I'm following. I don't know if I've said what you wanted to hear from my introduction.
Okay, thank you. You're welcome.
Yeah.
You're welcome, sister. So to the new members in this class, what we do, we read the paragraph in the screen. If you can see the screen, we are reading the paragraph starting from the word the 18th century. This is Consciousness Study book that was written by Kwame Nkrumah. We are reading the chapter 1, which is Philosophy in Retrospect. And after you read a paragraph, we share our thinking. What are you trying to understand out of that paragraph there? How can you relate it to what's going on in Africa, or how do you betterly understand it? So that's what we do. So we've been reading the paragraph 1 starting from the 18th century African philosopher until the end of that paragraph. So we are going around to ask people to share what are they running from here. In this particular moment, we are discussing the idealists or idealism as a philosophy or ideology, the idealist and the idealist position. So we are trying to examine idealist position or idealism. So that's what you are doing, and this is a continuation of that reading. So here is somebody giving his opinion. So I'll give you some time a bit to read it also and catch up a bit and see how you can digest it as you move to other comrades who will also be sharing their thinking so that you understand what we do. But you're most welcome. We meet every Thursday, 9 p.m. So Brother Mauli, you should be sharing your thinking. Then we go to Brother Kwame, Christian Kwame. Brother Mauli?
No, pass over me, please.
Why that fast pass? You've been here.
Where I was a bit distracted a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Brother Christian Kwame? Brother Kwame Christian?
Yes. So, yeah, thank you for asking me to share. There's a lot to say about this paragraph in terms of where we are. Let's remember that we are discussing or sharing our thinking on radical Pan-Africanism. And by radical Pan-Africanism, we mean the perspective that is required of Africans, freedom fighters that is, or revolutionaries, who have decided that their life's work going forward, whatever it was before, is the total liberation, the total unification, and the total development of Africa, guided by the supreme law, which is that the welfare of Africans is that supreme law. So this is what is guiding us. And this book that we are reading, Conscientism, and I'm saying this, I'm contextualizing it for the benefit of some of us who are new here. And this book was written by Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who during his time was known as the father of Pan-Africanism, because he spearheaded Pan-Africanism and brought it from England. So we started in America in 1900, brought it from England to Africa. So what we are reading is what he has written down. And what he has written is, if you like, a summary of the thinking that was required in order to defeat colonialism and the thinking that is required to defeat neocolonialism. The problem we have today amongst Africans generally, and the young Africans in particular, is that they do not have access to this book. By access, I don't mean they can't buy it. They can buy it, but reading it and understanding it is a problem. Hence this class. Hence we organize this class so that we can share Nkrumah's thinking, Nkrumah's philosophy, and his ideology. When he was in Conakry, after his overthrow, he did write a second edition or updated it. But the original version was written in 1964. And if you recall, Ghana got independence in 1957. And that year is 10 years from 1947, when he left, or when the group of Africans, including people like Banda of Malawi, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, and others, they all left the conference, if you recall. And the plan was that they will all fight for the independence of their colonial territories. Remember, Nkrumah left Africa on the advice of Azikiwe in order to attend Lincoln University. Yeah, so that was the advice. So when he left the soil of Africa, his plan was to find a formula for defeating colonialism. And history shows that it worked. So that is what this book is about. And what we are saying in this class is this: unless and until Africans have the perspective required to defeat a formidable enemy, they will not be able to do it. They may succeed to some extent, but it will be hard for you to defeat an enemy if you do not have the state of mind, if you like, required to defeat that enemy. And here in this book, Nkrumah provides this for us. Now, there are two contending or opposing ideologies in this world. You walk into any library, whether it's a bookshop, a book that a shop that sells books, or you walk into any library in a university and you go to the philosophy section, you see a lot of books on philosophy, different versions, these, that, but the secret is this: all that they have written can be boiled down to two opposing ideologies. They are idealism and materialism. The idealists argue that our universe is made up of spirits and their ideas. The materialists say no, our universe is not made up of spirits and their ideas, and that our universe is made up of matter. And by matter, they take a scientific view, by which we mean things like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and these elements, the fundamental building blocks of material life. Of course, we know that part of nature is not all the matter that we know. There's also something called dark matter, which we don't fully understand. Science doesn't fully understand what it is, but it makes up at least 80% of our universe. Okay, the question is this: so these are the two philosophical positions. So idealists say that materialists are wrong, the materialists say that the idealists are wrong, and the argument continues and has continued till today. And where did this come from? It came from the Africans, because the Africans are experts at idealism, and the same Africans are experts at materialism. Okay, and you have extremists on both sides. There are extremists that say everything is spirit. Then there are those who say no, everything is matter. And then there are those between who say actually it's both. And you find that amongst Africans, when we say that if there's an accident and somebody is hit by a vehicle and the person dies, right? The African would say that yes, the car hit him and he died, but we think there's something else behind. Maybe there's a witch, or or there is some juju, there is some spiritual dimension, and that the person didn't die just because the vehicle hit him or her. Yeah, that's the African position. And what it means is that the African's position is in the middle, if you like. Not all Africans, some Africans. That the universe is made up of matter and it has a spiritual dimension. As I said, there are people on opposite sides. Those who say that no, it's all spirit. Yeah? And the ultimate spirit, as we know, is God himself or herself, depending on whether you see God as a male or a female, or as in terms of the sex of God, yeah, or whether God is a hermaphrodite, that is neither male nor female. However you see it, or see him, or see her, he or she or it is the ultimate, yeah, in terms of spirit. So the idea is that the universe is spirit. It's a spiritual universe. So that means that everything you see in the universe is just a dream. How do you know I exist? You don't know maybe you are asleep. All of you are asleep. And you're having a dream. And the dream is that there's a brother called Brother Kwame talking to you. Yeah? All of you are asleep. And in your sleep, you are seeing me in your dream. That this life doesn't really exist. It's not just a dream. It's something happening in the spiritual. Everything is thought, ultimately. There's no chair, bed, Gary, rice. All these things are just imaginary things. They are just thoughts. So that is the the idealists. And then, as I said, at the opposite are the materialists, saying that that's all nonsense. How can you say that Kwame doesn't exist when I can hear Kwame speaking? Yeah. But hold on, you can still hear Kwame speaking in a dream, and you think it's real until you wake up. So how do you know that you are not really in a dream? And so the argument continues. The point is this: for us to liberate, unite, and develop Africa, we have to take a position. And the position we have to take has to be a position that enables us to advance our public duty. All right? Because if you become a minister, a head of state, a secretary of state, a district commissioner, if you become the head of a parastatal, the head of a company, the head of an irrigation initiative, if you take any public role, you cease to be a private individual anymore. You have then decided that you want to undertake a public role in the transformation of life. Therefore, you have a responsibility. Okay. Therefore, you cannot just say that the people don't exist, as the idealists say. People don't exist. This life is not real. People suffering. People are not really suffering. It's just in a dream. They're not really suffering. Nothing. There's no such thing as suffering. It's all just a dream. You can't take that position if you are the president, and then you say, well, everybody is just dreaming. There's no pain, there's no suffering, and so on. So we have to take a position, and the position we have to take, quite apart from our private position, is that we must take a materialist view. But this paragraph, this chapter we are reading, is introducing us to the arguments for and against both idealism and materialism. So far, we are looking at idealism. We are getting close to the end of the. We are getting close to the end of the idealist argument. But this paragraph that we read today is. Sashirin, are you okay there? We are hearing you, just so you know. So the paragraph we have read today talks about the argument that William Amu, who is today we'll call him a Ghanaian, but in those days he was a colonial subject. But William Amu was taken into slavery as a very young boy, I believe. He was taken to slavery, and then he grew up. He was sent to school by his colonialist mentors, and he was sent to school. He was very good. Therefore, he then went on to university, and he became a professor. And he wrote this book that has been mentioned, Mentis Apatheia, which is to do with the state of the mind, something about the state of the mind. Now, so Amu wrote this book, and it's in 2 volumes. It's still around. I've seen a copy of the original, but not sure if it is the original as published. But it's 2 volumes. I saw it with an African who was a lawyer in Nkrumah East, and he had a copy in his library, and he showed it to me, and it was given to him when he went to Cologne University, and he visited Cologne University, where he spoke of Nkrumah. So one of the leaders of the university then invited him over and told him that William Amu's publications do exist, and gave him a signed copy. So he's passed away now. I don't know where those copies are, but his children must have it. His house is not far from my house in Ghana. So those books exist, and it's written in Latin. So of course, unless it's translated, I don't know if there are translations. The one I saw was in the original, was in Latin. So William Amu therefore grew up in Germany, and as you all know or may not know, Germany was the leading light in terms of learning. Yeah, the Germans were very advanced. They're one of the most advanced learners on the planet at the time, and William Amu was one of them. Now, William Amu was born in 1703 and died in 1759. His contemporaries are also big names that you already know. One is Kant, Immanuel Kant. Now, Kant was born in 1724. So Amu is older, William is older than Kant. And although William died in 1759, Kant died in 1804. So not too long, about 50 years or more after William died. Hegel also was a contemporary. No, Hegel wasn't a direct contemporary. Hegel was born after William. But remember, this is all in Germany. His direct contemporary, though, is the philosopher called David Hume. And David Hume was born in 1711. So William is older than David Hume. But David Hume died not too long after William died. He died in 1776. So you can see that William Amu and David Hume were contemporaries. And yet, it was David Hume that was the racist and said that we Africans had contributed nothing to civilization. That is interesting, considering that William Amu was his contemporary, and William Amu was a black man. So how David Hume could have arrived at that conclusion when William was a black man leads us to think that there was a difference put between Africans. So there are Africans that are seen as Africans but not Africans, if you see what I mean. In other words, they are the superior Africans. And then there are Africans who are, in inverted commas, the lower Africans. They are the savages. They are not educated. They are not civilized. So they don't deserve to be seen as part of the civilized world. And that thinking, if those of you know the history of the fights between Du Bois and Marcus Garvey, will be familiar with this history. As you know, Du Bois was very educated, one of the most educated Africans, but Du Bois was mixed race. Marcus Garvey was like me, black, woolly hair, flat nose, and so on. And when the fight erupted between Garvey and Du Bois, it was around the color of the skin. And so Du Bois saw himself as a superior African who had the right to live in America. And Marcus Garvey, being black with flat nose and woolly hair, was the inferior kind of African. In fact, did not even deserve to be even respected. And those who know the history, it's there. It was terrible. Later on, when Nkrumah went to America, he did not meet Du Bois because he was so angry with Du Bois. Garvey had then been deported and had died in England. So Nkrumah never got to meet Marcus Garvey, even though Garvey was the reason he went to America, one of the reasons he went to meet Marcus Garvey.
The talented temp, Brother Kwame, isn't it?
Sorry?
Talented temp? Is it the talented temp or something like that?
The talented tenth. Yes.
Is it the talented temp? Sorry.
Yeah, the talented tenth was one of the arguments of Du Bois. Basically, they are, if you like, the upper crust. They are the cream. You see, the cream of the. So you see, it's as if the color of the African was crucial in determining their status. So the lighter you are in skin color, the closer you are to the Caucasian who was at the top of the pyramid of civilization. There was this false hierarchy. We know it's false because there's no scientific basis to it. And the top of that hierarchy was the Caucasian with pale skin, with their hair and so on, no melanin, but somehow they are at the top of the hierarchy, followed by the lighter ones, and then somehow the brown people even came between, the what you might call the mulattoes or the mixed race, and then we, people like me, the black-skinned ones, we were at the bottom of the hierarchy. And even maybe me, I'm even higher up the Sudanese, who are like charcoal. They are black like charcoal. If you want to see the beauty of the African in terms of skin color, the Sudanese are just, if you like, the clearest example. And sometimes when you look at their skin color being very dark, it even shines under the sun. Some of the Zulus are also very dark, and when you look at them, their blackness kind of, it shines, and so on. Now people will tell you that the Caucasians see us as inferior because of our skin color, and it turns out that they don't see us as inferior at all. They see us as having the color that they can never have, and so anger sets in, and they get angry with you. They dislike you. How come that we are all children of the black woman, and suddenly you have this black skin and we don't have it? Well, why don't we then go and dry ourselves in the sun?
Sister, Brother Kwame,
Yes, I'll come to Stida in a moment. Why don't we dry ourselves in the sun like saltfish and so on? But the point I am making is that William Amu was an African, and yet David Hume said that Africans did not contribute to civilization, when clearly Amu did. Now, the paragraph we have read takes the argument further. It says that according to William Amu, the mind, if you are saying that the universe is in the mind, there's a problem. Why? Because the universe is extended. By extended, we simply means that it is space. And in space, we have the sun, we have the moon, we have Mars, we have Pluto, which is now not a planet, but it's there. We have Neptune. We have all these planets that are sometimes millions of light years away from each other. All these are in the universe. How can these things be in your mind? If you are saying they are in the mind, then it means that the mind itself has to be extended. But how is that possible? How can the brain, the mind of one person, any one of us, how can that mind have inside it all these special objects? And so what William Amu is saying is that there's a contradiction in idealism. That in as much as idealism says that the universe is in the mind, which ultimately means that everything is mind or thought or spirit, there is a problem, because the mind is not a special object itself. The mind, the brain from which the mind comes, is in a bony structure called the skull, and in that skull is an object called the brain, and that brain is in a liquid. It swims in a liquid inside the brain, and that brain is connected to the body through the spinal cord and so on. And that is what the brain is. That's what the mind is. It is certainly not extended. So how can the universe be inside it? Hence, what William Amu is saying through his book, which Nkrumah is quoting, is that idealism has a fundamental contradiction. Now, this is the second contradiction we have found in idealism. There are a lot. We found incipient solipsism. Then we had complete solipsism. Now we have we then came across the one where it's saying that all that exists is the mind, or me. I'm the only one who exists, which is some kind of madness, if you like. It's only a mad person that will say that they are the only people existing, because I can't see how you are the only person who can exist when you had a mother and a father, and then you say you exist. How could you have come to exist when you have a father and a mother? and you have cousins and so on. It's just complete madness. And you recall, Isamara was suggesting that maybe they go to a psychologist for help. And I asked how a psychiatrist, a psychology for help. And I asked, well, why not a psychiatrist instead? Because clearly it's madness. And Sister Ida, you recall, also said that as far as you can see, it was complete madness. So to summarize then, William Amu had contemporaries, big names in terms of philosophy, people like Immanuel Kant, who was Immanuel Kant, David Hume. These are big philosophers. Their contemporary was an African like us, and he contributed to the debate around materialism. As you know, Hegel is the one that took idealism even further, and his disciple was Karl Marx, and Karl Marx was the one that overthrew what you might call the Hegelian philosophy of idealism by turning it upside down on its head, and said that it is not mind that determines the matter, it's rather matter that determines mind. This is Karl Marx's contribution. What we are saying in philosophy in retrospect is that itself is an African tradition. That itself is an African tradition, and that is where Amu was coming from. And in the if you go into African philosophy, you will find that African philosophy fundamentally is a materialist philosophy. I'll stop there. Sister Ida.
Thank you for that. Let me allow Sister Ida to go ahead.
Brother Kwame was saying about Du Bois and Marcus Garvey, and you said Nkrumah didn't get on with Du Bois, yet he invited him to Ghana and hosted him for the rest of his life. So could you say something about that?
Yes. So when Nkrumah was in America, he didn't want to see Du Bois at all, because he wasn't happy with the way Du Bois treated Marcus Garvey. Why? Because, sorry, I'm eating, so you might hear it in the thing. So why? Because Marcus Garvey was Nkrumah's, if you like, not his mentor, but he was his inspiration. Garvey was the inspiration of a lot of people, and Nkrumah was one of them because of his Back to Africa movement. So Garvey inspired the black world at the time, and Nkrumah's position was that, considering that Garvey galvanized Africans all over the world, which you, Du Bois, did not do, why didn't you just combine with Garvey? So Nkrumah's position was that what Du Bois intellectual should have done was to combine forces with Marcus Garvey instead of opposing Garvey. And Du Bois opposed Garvey to the extent that Garvey's plan to found a new city in Africa, in Sierra Leone, even Du Bois sabotaged it. Because of Du Bois, all the Africans who had signed up to relocate from wherever they were, especially America, and return to the continent and build a new city, with their money, they had machines, they had everything, they had plans for the city. Du Bois sabotaged it. Okay, so Nkrumah wasn't very happy with Du Bois. However, by the time he got to America, Garvey had already been deported, and so Nkrumah didn't want to know at all. But when Nkrumah returned to Africa and started the fight for the liberation of Africa, starting in Ghana, the Gold Coast, 1947 to 1957, he then wanted an African history project. We needed someone to document the history of Africa, because at the time, Europeans were saying that we had no history. But we had a history. They didn't know it, but we had a history. So Nkrumah needed someone with the caliber and the reputation of Du Bois to lead that project. So Nkrumah invited Du Bois, Ghana, to come and lead what was then called the Africana Encyclopedia. That was what it was called. So Du Bois led that, and he was working on it. And he worked on it. So Du Bois then relocated to Ghana. That's how inspirational it was at the time. Ghana was like where to be. Everybody was a Ghanaian. If you ask any African in England at the time, everybody was a Ghanaian. As Nigerians were Ghanaians, everybody was a Ghanaian. That's how it was. It was so inspirational. We were all Ghanaians, you know. And so Du Bois then stayed in Ghana, and that's where he lived the rest of his life, working on this history project. And so when he died in Nkrumah's arms, by the way. That's where he died. So when he died, Nkrumah buried him and set up a piece of land and buried him on that land. And he built a center there called the Boy Center. The boy is actually buried in that place. He's actually buried there. That's his graveyard. But that's also where the center, and that's where we hold a lot of events. So George Padmore also has a library named after him called the George Padmore Library. But incidentally, Garvey hasn't got a monument like Du Bois. Now, the irony, since you ask, the irony is this. Isn't it ironic that the man who fought Garvey over the return to Africa, saying that they have a right to live in Africa, they don't want to move to Africa, the talented 10th, as Sister Shireen has reminded us, isn't it ironic that it was he who rather moved to Ghana and lived in Ghana? And the man who was for it, Garvey himself, never did, and died and was buried in England. Isn't it ironic? Isn't it ironic that it was the man who fought him was the man who eventually actually lived Garvey's dream? That's interesting. So yeah, so Saida, that is the history.
Okay,
I hope that
Thank you. Thank you for that. I think we will have to proceed to the next paragraph so that the next members who have joined us now can tie their thinking a bit, because I think now they have been able to understand how we do this. So we will move to the next paragraph, which I'll be reading.
Sorry, Brother Pippin.
Yes.
Question for Brother Kwame. So, in terms of spatial awareness, it appears that Garvey planted the seed in the mind of Du Bois, and Du Bois, through his own, how can I put it, his own awareness or expansion of where he was at, decided to travel to Africa, and he was probably his idealism must have been expanded. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, you are right. So in that sense, Du Bois. So it's pronounced Du Bois, not Du Bois. Du Bois. So okay. I was told. I'm Du Bois. Okay. So yes. So Du Bois, in the end, if you like, agreed with Garvey, and the fact that he came to live in Ghana, it's clear that there was that discussion between Nkrumah and himself, and so yes. So I am not suggesting, however, Sister Shireen, I'm not suggesting, however, that Du Bois was an idealist. I'm not suggesting that.
No, not at all.
But I am agreeing with you that his mind, unlike before, was expanded, so that in the course of time, he came to see that what Marcus Garvey stood for was correct.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. I'm afraid we might be moving out of the topics based on the historical fact you raised. But just permit me,
ask a quick question.
Yes, Sister
Boys, was he a black man?
Yes, he was mixed race.
Oh, because I thought the Boys was white. Maybe
No,
I'm
he was mixed race. No, he has African blood. Yeah.
okay.
But
And also,
remember, in America in those days, one drop of black blood and you are
black, yeah.
black. I see.
Also, Garvey, yeah, Marcus Garvey. Eventually, they took him back to Jamaica, and they didn't really agree with his policy at the time. But I think people at some point woke up and realized that he was greater than what they were condemning him to be.
The prophet. They say, you know what they say about the prophet. The prophet is not accepted in their own hometown.
Can I just ask, is Marlene saying that he's been, I know that he used to be in Kensal Green Cemetery. Is she saying that he's now been moved to Jamaica?
As far as I know, yes.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, this debate will have it on Saturday. Let me push it to Saturday debate.
I'm never around on a Saturday. I'm always busy. All right. Sorry.
Okay.
Continue.
Thank you for that. Let's continue. And this is the paragraph you are reading so that we can share our thinking as we come to the end of the class in the next 30 minutes. So the next paragraph says, idealism suffers from what I might call the God complex. It is what Marx called intoxicated speculation. It is what may be called the ecstasy of intellectualism. The concept of an object, let alone the concept of the same object, cannot be properly formulated in idealism. Having once dismantled the world, idealists are unable to put it together again. And Barclays has to say that his apple is only a simultaneity of sweetness, roundness, smoothness, etc. It is as if one could not have soup anymore, but only its ingredients. The distinctions between reality and appearance slips between the spectral fingers of idealism. For in idealism, reality becomes merely a persistent appearance. In this way, idealism makes itself incompetent with science. Permit me to stop there, because I don't want to try the, of course, the last paragraph sum up, the next paragraph sum up the whole idealism position, but permit me to stop there, or if permitted, I can just sum up the idealism reading so that we do the sharing of the thinking immediately to that. The next class, we just turn to Marxism, to materialism.
So it's good where you stopped, Brother Pigeon. So if you go around, let's all share our thinking now you've just read.
Okay, thank you. So let's start now with
the so don't summarize. Yeah, everybody's thinking first.
Oh, members left. Let's start with Brother Bokan, who has been here for some time now. Now that you've got what you're trying to share, what you're trying to read, what are you making up of that? What's your thinking? Brother Bokan?
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, I actually the network is not all right on my side, but I'm trying to catch up.
Okay, we'll excuse you.
So just excuse me for now. Let me listen to others, and then I will have my views later.
Thank you. I've also noticed that Sister Ipsy from South Africa has also dropped due to network issues. But we hope the southern side will be able to get enough network and enough power to actually generate what is required for the conversation. Let me go to Brother Mauli. Will you ask to be skipped again? Which I don't think so.
I actually like your explanation on idealism.
Hold
Okay.
on, brother Mauli.
Okay, so
Brother Pigeon. That's not a fair question, is it? I mean, just let him share. Yeah, that's not fair to him at all. Yeah.
No, I know it will not be skipped. So it was okay. Sorry for that. But
That's
Mauli,
okay.
can you proceed?
okay, all right. I think I understand, brother Piggy for his comment. All right. So I like the way you actually explain it in terms of idealism. But does it make it different? Because most often people see an ideology, or is there difference between idealism and ideology? First of all.
That's a good question that Brother Kwame should be able to explain the difference between ideology and ideology. But can you proceed? That question is archived.
What?
Can you proceed? The question will be answered. Just proceed with
Okay.
what you are trying to
So because most often, when you are trying to approach people in terms of that, you are not ideologically inclined to be able to lead or to lead a particular, let's say, sector into success. They feel as if maybe you are being mischievous in a way. And it becomes an issue all the time to really explain to them what that really mean. So I have always been thinking about how to really make a difference, to distinguish between an idealism and also to not to have any idealist, not to be any idealist at all. That is my challenge.
Okay, thank you. Brother Kwame, Brother Mauli have asked if there's difference between ideas and ideology.
Ideas and?
Either idealism and ideology.
Okay. So
he's not able to understand the two, and therefore he get confused whether somebody who is having an ideology is perceived to be idealist.
Yeah, so ideology is a study of, if you like, the study of ideas, if you like, as a logic, as a study. Yeah. Idealism is an ideology. It's one of the ideologies that philosophers study. And idealism says that our universe is made up of spirits. Essentially, it's a spiritual universe. That's what idealism effectively says. And that is one ideology. And yeah, so ideology is, if you like, the study of like ideas, whereas idealism is a particular group of ideas, as is materialism also a particular group of ideas.
Okay, so
The
ideology is the parent, ideas are the kids. The other materialism or idealism are branches of ideology.
Of ideologies, yes. And there are only two ideologies, as you say, materialism
or idealism. Brother
so,
Mauli?
So in terms of the question, hold on. So in terms of the question Mauli asked, the difference between idealists say that everything is spirit, and materialists say that no, everything is matter. That's the difference.
Okay, that's it.
So one is saying everything is spirit, that's the idealists, and then the materialists say everything is matter. So even space itself is a dimension of matter, if you like. Yeah?
Okay.
Does that help?
That's help a lot. But then another question will now be that if so, can an ideology or an idealist person, because that means it's just an idea that has not been conceived into material state yet, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, even materialism is also a set of ideas, isn't it? Yeah? If you say that the universe, if you say the universe is matter or is a materialist universe, and that its existence has nothing to do with the human mind or consciousness or brain, that in itself is an idea, isn't it? Yeah? It's
Yeah.
an idea in our head, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is.
But the difference is this. You and I know that before we arrived with our brains, the universe was already there.
Exactly.
Therefore, the universe cannot exist because of the mind.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, if you
It
then
is true.
argue that, well, God has a mind and God created the universe, then the problem is, well, where did God get his mind from? And then that becomes a problem, because then you have to tell us where God got his mind.
Exactly.
And if God has a mind, is that mind matter or spirit? And how can the mind be spirit when we know that the only thing that thinks, all thinking beings on this planet, including animals, even flies, they all have a brain. So did God have a brain? And if so, where did God get his brain from?
Exactly.
And so on and so forth.
So that means that becomes an unending question. That becomes an unending solution, like
that is for the idealists.
Yes.
What we materialists are saying is that the universe has no outside. In other words, there is no cause. Nothing caused it. It has always been there. The idea that the universe has a beginning is if you like, we human beings projecting what is inside the world to the world itself, if that makes sense. So in our world, we see things begin and then they end. Babies are born and they grow up, they become old men or old ladies, and they die. So because we see that around us all the time, we then think that the universe itself is like that.
Yeah.
But there's no reason why it should be. Yeah. So to summarize, the universe was there before we arrived with our brains.
Exactly. Yeah.
Therefore, the universe cannot depend. Its existence cannot depend on our minds. But rather, if the universe was there before we arrived, that means the universe caused our minds. In other words, the source of the source of mind is in matter itself, and not the other way around.
Okay. So then another question will now follow, that if the universe cannot depend on
You've muted yourself, brother, accidentally. Brother Mal, you've muted yourself accidentally.
Is that okay? I was saying that yes, if the universe does not depend on our mind in order to continue to exist, does it also in the vice versa or the opposite way? Can our mind also destroy the universe?
I don't see how our mind can destroy the universe. How can you do that?
Like the global warming and all those stuff that's going on with this greenhouse effect.
That is just our planet. Our planet is just like a grain of sand in the scheme of things.
Yeah, this is true.
Our planet, even our cosmos, is just like a grain of sand in the galaxy. So we are not significant at all.
That is true.
Yeah?
So we can't. Yeah. But we can only destroy our habitat. However,
we can only destroy our habitat. Even when we destroy our habitat, how will that affect Mars or the moon? How?
Yeah.
Even if we blow up our planet with a big bomb, how is that going to affect the next galaxy to us?
It has nothing to do with it. It's true.
Precisely. Precisely.
Okay. So I think I get my questions has been answered.
Yeah, it's true. As you're saying, if mind is just a product of the universe, then the mind cannot destroy the universe. Unless the universe was a product of mind, then the mind in their perceptives or their perception, they can believe that they can destroy the universe. But to the idealists, also the universe doesn't exist to them, or everything is within their mind. And if there's any composition anything outside their mind is more of a perception. It's like dreaming that it's there when it's not there. So they only be more selfish and they only think of themselves in their thinking, or only what is in mind. And anything outside that is not making sense. To them, I don't think even the universe exists. To them, it's only the mind exists. And anything within the ideas and the minds and the conception, it's all that exists. But let me hear what sister, we have Naleli, maybe they might introduce themselves first before we proceed. And Naleli Nonyane, can you introduce yourself before we proceed? And you're welcome to our class, please. Just say who you are, maybe where you're joining us from.
Apologies. I joined with my daughter's phone, so I will have to change that.
Coco.
That's Coco. Yeah.
You're welcome. You said you'll be late, but you're welcome. At least you're almost ending, but thank you. Welcome. So, Sister Myra, then Sister Shireen, then Sister Ida. The sisters are today here in numbers. It's good the sisters are waking up, and we have to wake up also. Sister Myra?
So I think what he's saying is that when he says idealism suffers from what I call God complex, I think we've discussed that, where a person will decide that I have a body, or no, I don't have a body, or because I see a black person, but because in my mind I don't value that as an idea, then they don't exist, or they have no history, or they have no culture, because we can't conceive it in our world of ideas. So that's kind of a superiority God complex that just decides on a whim, because I can't conceive something as an idea, then it doesn't exist. Then the sentence that says, having once dismantled the world, idealists are unable to put it together again. I remember reading somewhere that what the imperialists did, and are still doing, is they took the world and they imagined it in their own image, how they wanted it to be, how they'll stay on top, how they'll plunder all the rest at the expense of the other, and to their enrichment, and they made it happen. So, and that because of their idealist views or approach to the world, the doesn't matter whether the children of Congo are they're digging on their hands and knees for minerals that will go into the technological world of the metropoles. You know, have you ever seen in England children being put to work? It's unacceptable here, but it's okay over there, because, well, you know, that's another world. We don't in our ideas, it's they have different standards. It's okay, you know, as long as we get our minerals, you see. So it's a double standard. But again, on the positive side, with materialism, if everything is matter, then that means we as Africans can reclaim our matter and rebuild our world and reconstitute our world, because it is matter. Therefore, it is moldable, it is movable, it is buildable. So, I think for me, what jumps out to me is that materialism is a good antidote to the imperialist, idealist view of the world, because while they stick with their ideas, which we've already refuted in the previous paragraphs, we can take our material and build it in our materialist view of the world. Thank you.
Oh, that's very wonderful. You've reminded me of the abstract thinking that you was sharing some times back, the abstract thinking. That's very beautiful. Let me go to Comrade Bokang. Over now to move to Shireen. Bokang has raised his hand up, so let me get what Bokang is saying, then we move to Shireen. Bokang?
Yes, please. Well, you will forgive me if I will be taking you back a little bit. Like I said, I didn't get some of the things because of the network. So from what has been discussed here, I understand that our mind is a product of the universe. That is what has been said. And then I want to ask, if that is the case, then where does the issue of God comes in? Is God an existing being, or is God just an idea? Where does he fall in the whole thing? I understand that we as Africans, we believe that materialism is the way to go. There is also an idealism. Where does God fall between the two?
Thank you for that. It's a question that I'd also be eager to know where God exists in between. Well, I remember Nkrumah shared a bit in regards to religion, because it was the spirits and ideas under idealism, spirits and ideas. And even them, they cannot be able to tell us if God is a material being. Have they ever been able to tell us if God is a male or a female, or if God is white or black? You see, they just say there's God that exists. And even if you ask those religious people, who is God? They cannot paint for you the picture. To them, it's like a thinking. It's an idea that there's somebody exists. So to them, in fact, the idealists, still God appears to be ideas to them and a spirit, not actually a concrete something or somebody or a material being. But I'd like to be also get some views from other members who are here who can share that. So if I go to Sister Shireen, before you give your opinion or before you share your thinking, kindly, if you can be able to answer that question in regards to idealist, Sister Shireen, but you can just pass also if you cannot answer. You just go to your thinking.
I'm gonna try. So the God complex comes about when people have ideas that stem away from the collective. And it's a condition where your thoughts are well, they get carried away, and you no longer think like the whole. And in some instances, like say for example, on the plantation, for example, the God complex might work because where you have people on the plantation or the enslaved on the plantation, there's always somebody who wants to run away and who wants to distance themselves from the collective. And correct me if I'm moving away from, you know, what I should be kind of focusing on in terms of this conversation. But in that instance, a God complex, inverted commas, works because somebody has identified that the behaviors of the whole are not benefiting, are not, I wouldn't say benefiting, but are different to the realization that, say, one person or other people have. So it depends on conditioning as well. But in this instance, Marx is talking about the God complex being intoxicated. So this is where it works against the collective progression of all. And like say for example, when people are take substances, for example, they are brought into a different state of mind and sometimes a different dimension. And this is where he talks about the ecstasy of intellectualism, where it becomes a daydream to some extent. Your mind is veering off in its creativity, and in some ways or other may not be realistic in regards to where the masses are. Sorry if I'm confusing people. So constantly yeah, so say for example, like where it says, having once dismantled the world, idealists aren't able to put it back together again. And it's like in some way or other where it's like they say, don't change the wheel. If the wheel is working in positive collectivism, why would you want to break the wheel or change the wheel? Because the wheel works. But in some ways, like in the materialist sense, for example, sometimes the wheel has to be broken depending on where the persecution or the dominance of say one group over another is, where it's negative. And I think I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Sister Ida or Sister Marlene.
I think it might be me. I think it might be Sister Ida's turn next. So I think to me that the God complex means that whatever people who are idealistic decides means that then they think it's a reality and they can dictate anything. And I think it's about dictatorship rather than realism. Things aren't necessarily real to them, but they will make them real because they're dictating that that's how things have to be. And I think at the end it says that the distinction between reality and appearance slips between the spatial figures of idealism. And I think that it's just saying that maybe their reality isn't necessarily real because it's all in their mind. And as a result, they dictate what their mind says, and others sort of have to obey, hence the God complex. So I think that's really what it's saying. But I have to say that I don't think I really understood the last paragraph we read. And I don't know that I really thought Brother Kwame explained it. So I hope that even if it's at the beginning of the next lesson, he might go back and explain it a bit more to us. Because I found that a bit complicated. And I'm not sure that I'm clear about it still in my mind. So I think I've said what I need to say about this paragraph because I don't think it's as complicated as the last one. I think it's whatever they dictate should then become a reality, even if it's not real. But you know, what I say goes, sort of thing. I think that's called complex. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Ida, for that. We are 2 minutes to our end of our class. Let's hear what Sister Marlene is saying. And as per your request, yes, we can start out from there, maybe next class. Sister Marlene?
I haven't really got a lot to add to what everyone said. All I can say, what it says is idealism suffer from what I might call the God complex. So it is quite a complex thing within the world. And when one's dismantled the word, and idealists are unable to put it together again. So it's a complex thing that people have tried to dismantle, and then they've tried to put it together, and they don't seem to be able to. And people are quite confused about it all, and it's like a perception of their thinking. I don't know. I'm not sure if I'm making sense, but along that line, it's a bit of a complex thing that people try to work out.
Okay, thank you for sharing your thinking as well. So, Brother Kwame will pick up this from the next class, but Brother Coco, since you've come last, and allow me give you the opportunity to help us understand also what's God complex there. In 1 minute or two, then we come to the end of our class. Brother Coco?
Thank you very much, and thank you for this opportunity. Let me welcome my brother Bokang. Happy to have you amongst us. With regards to God complex, I think
Thank you so much, my brother.
let's take superiority complex or inferiority complex. People with those things, they think if you have inferiority complex, you feel others are better than you. But if you have superiority complex, you feel you are better than others. So in the same vein, if you have a God complex, you think you can create and you can destroy. So in this case, idealists, they can create the world the way they want it and come up with what they think about it, and it's just what it is to them. And there you see them, they put the world together, but they cannot put it back how it used to be, because the way they put it doesn't make sense. In the case where they use the taste, they have ingredients. They're taking ingredients out of the soup, because the soup cannot have all those ingredients happening at the same time. I think that is what I have now, but we can continue again next time. Thank you.
Very much for that. Unless Brother Kwame has something to say, but as you've said, the idealists came up with their idealist position, but now to defend it is hard for them. For them to state how it started to be, it's very hard for them. Remember somebody say, I think, therefore I am. So they created the ideas, but now to defend the ideas, to reconstruct it to how it came to be or what there is, now it's becoming hard for them to answer that. Brother Kwame, as we end the class.
Yeah, so it is true, as Sister Ida has said, that the paragraph before and this one is not as complex. The paragraph before is slightly more complex. Yes, let's continue this discussion next week. The previous paragraph, you could summarize it as saying that it's not possible for the mind, for the world, it's either to be in the mind, because the universe is very big. It can't fit into your mind. That's essentially what that paragraph is saying. Paragraph we have read now is saying that idealists cannot do science. And we know, because the only science we know is from materialism. Idealism has no science. It cannot produce one. If you ask, for example, if you ask those who go to church amongst us, if you ask them, who created the world? They will say God. Who created the banana? They will say God. If who created the car? They will even say God. For them, God created everything. And that is not a serious scientific position to take. Yeah? But then if you ask, well, okay, God created the banana and created the car, or created man. So what is the difference? How did God create the banana as opposed to man? What goes into the creation of man and the banana? They're unable to say. All they will say is, well, God created it, God made it. That's all you will get from them. God made it. End of story. Because there is no story. That's what this paragraph is telling us. If you want a scientific position, and that is the God complex, if you like, in a way, everything is God is everywhere. but nowhere, because there's no story really. So that's the paragraph we've read. And so basically, this final paragraph is telling us that if we want to save Africa, cannot do it with idealism. Why? Because it offers us no science. It doesn't. Everything you want to do, if you want the people to have clean water to drink, you need a scientific approach. You need to build pipes. Pipes require science. You need to purify the water. The water purification requires a science of hydrology, if you like. Anything, if we want to develop Africa, we'll need a scientific position. If we follow these God people, we'll get nowhere. That's basically this paragraph is telling us. Let me end there because of time. We'll continue next week.